This is part 2 of a series where I cover an iceberg chart I made considering UnderTale and DeltaRune. If you haven't seen part 1, do so before watching this video. This video contains spoilers for UnderTale and DeltaRune. If you haven't played the games or certain parts of it and don't want to be spoiled, I recommend playing it first. This video also contains swearing and is recommended for ages 13 and up. All images, music, and footage are owned by their respective owners. Don't go after or harass anyone mentioned in this video. Hey everyone, I am Bones, and we are back with Tier 2 of the Iceberg. Before I talk about anything moving forward, I will say that in regards to the last video, the original was done a few months ago, but I wanted to wait until I had both a blog and a channel simultaneously before posting it, and now it's here. Here, you can see stuff posted by myself as Bones and as Inks, along with other stuff. I'll post personal updates here as well, and other stuff that I may feel like sharing. So if any of that sounds interesting, go check it out. But anyways, now that all that has happened, I want to try to release the rest of this series as much as I can so that I can compile all parts into a big video for the 10th anniversary this year. I'm saying this to explain how I plan to do my upload schedule for the next coming months. But that won't stay consistent in the long run. I plan to do more stuff outside of Icebergs, UnderTale, and DeltaRune, but for now, let's get back into an overstuffed UnderTale and DeltaRune Iceberg explained. Before going into Tier 2, I do want to clarify what I talk about when discussing certain topics and people and figures in this iceberg. When I talk about certain people on the iceberg, I more so talk about their relation to UnderTale and DeltaRune. There are certain people who do make videos about UnderTale and DeltaRune from time to time, and there are music channels that make covers of both games, but for me to put them here, there needs to be a noticeable enough figure who constantly posts UnderTale and DeltaRune content, or solely make content about either of that stuff. Now sometimes I will bring up a person that doesn't do a lot of UnderTale or DeltaRune stuff, and when I do, it's because they may have done something additional, like make an original song for UnderTale. I just figured I wanted to clarify this before talking about more people in this iceberg. So, let's land on to Tier 2, Hometown or the Fan. You're officially part of the fandom. You have played the games and want more from this community and franchise that intrigues you. This tier is a continuation of Tier 1, but a bit more obscure. This is also the first topic/obscurity oriented tier, so it will contain memes and people known from within the online communities. It will also include merchandise from Fangame. Annoying Dog Car. In DeltaRune Chapter 2, there's a room you can access through the traffic section of Cyberworld. Upon entering the room, if you keep going right, all of a sudden, the annoying dog comes in driving a cozy coupe-like car and starts attacking the player until they're dead. Afterwards, the UnderTale game over screen plays until the dog abruptly drives into it, and then you respawn. Character trapped in code. In the files of DeltaRune, several strings of text can be found. The style of these texts suggests the idea that a character is trapped within the codes. The text includes: Where am I? Hello? Anyone? Is anybody out there? Someone? Anyone? Can anyone hear me? It's dark. It's so dark here. Someone? Anyone? If you can hear me, say something. Please. No one can hear me, can they? I guess not. To be honest, I'm not even sure I can hear myself. So play. And you know, sometimes I swear I hear something. Something like scratching? There are theories saying that this character could be the true Spamton, or at the very least are contacting through him. As when you talk to him in the shop, it seems like he has a familiar text and speech pattern whenever Spamton's eyes go static. And seeing how the texts were updated from Chapter 2, we can assume more will be included in the coming chapters. The Dark World is a game. In Chapter 1, when Kris and Susie reappear in the Light World, they end up in a classroom. where a bunch of items parallel to the Dark World appear, some of which resemble a game. At the beginning of Chapter 2, Ralsei tells Kris to go collect stuff from the Dark World, referring to the stuff we see in the classroom. If this is a game, it's certainly not one about a fictional world. Gaster is the Skelebros' father. This is by far the most well-known fanon/fan theory in the fandom. There's a few reasons why people think this is true, but here's a list. Gaster's appearance is very interesting, and a lot of people have thought of it to look like a skeleton. He's one of the only characters to be named after fonts, Wingdings and Aster, and uses Wingdings to speak. The unreadable symbols in Sans' labs could possibly be Wingdings, and it's possible that the three people could be the Gaster followers, and when you talk to the Snowden shopkeeper, she talks about how the Skelebros just showed up one day. But perhaps the biggest hint is that in Sans' boss fight, he uses these skulls that shoot blasters, and in the code, they're called Gaster blasters. This hints at Sans, and possibly by extension Papyrus, being either related to or having connections with Gaster himself. The Angel. The Angel is a prophecy from the underground in UnderTale. The prophecy states, an angel who has seen the surface will come, and the underground will go empty. The DeltaRune, more specifically the wings and circle, are meant to represent the Angel. Most people interpret this to be the pacifist route, the genocide route, or both, as an angel from the surface empties the underground, this being either Azrael or Chara. Snowball, Golf, and Human Souls connection. In Snowden Force, there's an optional minigame with Golf. Depending on what flag you get, it tells you how you played. If you're able to get the ball within the whole 6 seconds within your first try, the flag will turn red and state the following: bravery, justice, integrity, kindness, perseverance, patience. Using these, you are able to win at ball game. What's interesting about the text is that the colors of the 6 adjectives match with the 6 human souls, which has led fans to believe that these adjectives are meant to describe the previous 6 humans. The mayor is Noelle's mom. This is a theory that's all but confirmed, as Alphys states that Kris is neighbors with the mayor, and since Noelle is a friend and neighbor of Kris since they were children, and saying things such as how her mother doesn't like to be interrupted while busy, this theory seems to have some leniency. Sans Patrick connection. In 2019, fans found that Sans' voice came from a sample of Patrick Starr's speaking in the SpongeBob SquarePants episode titled Something Smells.
Maybe it's the way you're dressed. Maybe
After the discovery, it became a big meme, especially because it happened around the Smash Me costume reveal and became another format to the Sans' Nest memes. What those two thought. In the final part of entry 17 we hear, what do you two think? Which asks the question, what did these two think? The answer could change depending on what you think the story of Gaster is about. Could mean Sans and Alphys, Sans and Papyrus, or just 2 characters we haven't met yet. 10 out of 10. Whenever you encounter Temmie in UnderTale and check her description in game, it says, Temmie, rated 10 out of 10, loves to pet cute humans, but you're allergic. What's strange is that the 10 out of 10 part, which is obviously a pun on 10 out of 10, replaces her attack and defense info. Chara Is The Narrator. This is a large theory talking about all the evidence in UnderTale that suggests that Chara is a ghost that narrates your journey. Evidence includes the fact that the narrator has more character than it should, isn't omniscient or all-knowing some of the times, along with flavor text changing in Genocide, including the change of the text despite everything is still you into it's me, Chara. Most people thought that when the red text appears in Genocide, that's when Chara speaks, but considering that the last line is in normal text, that's not the case. And there's a lot more evidence that can be talked about in this video, so if you're interested, I recommend checking the link in the description below, and watching the Softs video, which was recently uploaded. When does UnderTale take place? The time period of UnderTale is debated among fans. Chara fell into the underground in 201X, meaning 2010, and the trophy in Asgore's house has 98 on it, which implies that he won the trophy in 1998. However, a few things don't line up. Papyrus's internet name is CoolDude95, while Undyne's name is Drawnfish91. With names like these, it correlates with the user's birth year. If they were born in the 1990s, it wouldn't make sense because they were born after Chara's time and didn't know what Toriel looks like. So it's likely that they were born in the 2090s. It makes sense as Toriel and Asgore are boss monsters who can live for hundreds of years. This might mean that Frisk could have landed a century after Chara's death, somewhere in the 2110s. Fallen Down monsters. Fallen Down is a term used to describe monsters who are on the verge of death. Alphys uses this term in her entries. It is explained more in Monster History Part 6, which states, "Unfortunately, monsters are not experienced with illness. However, when monsters are about to expire to age, they lie down immobile. We call this state fallen down. A person who has fallen down will soon perish." Asgore also mentions this in the UnderTale alarm clock when talking about Rudy and saying that he fell down. Subreddits. As to be expected, on Reddit there are a few subreddits that are dedicated to Undertale and DeltaRune related stuff, including r/Undertale, r/DeltaRune, and r/Underminers. Clam Girl. If the fun value is set between 80 and 89, you can find an NPC in Waterfall called Clam Girl. When talking to her, she mentions her neighbor's daughter, Susie, and how you two should meet sometime. She also states that fate may have a way for you two to meet. In version 1.0.0.1, there is new dialogue which states, "In life's grand scheme, she might be why you came here in the first place." In this patch, talking to her makes the Don't Forget note appear in Sans' True Lab. In the Nintendo Switch version of the game, Fun Value 81 will have her start off with the same dialogue in other versions, but then her sprite changes and becomes grayscale, and she'll say how your time to meet her is soon fast approaching before disappearing like Mystery Man. Sense of Deja Vu. One of the most well-known mechanics of Undertale is its sense of deja vu that can occur through resets and reloads. This sense of deja vu comes from when characters claim that Frisk looks familiar to them or that they feel like they knew what their decision would be, such as when Papyrus talks to Sans about how the human looks familiar to him, or Toriel being able to know your decision for pie before asking your options. You will regret this. If you refuse to sell an item twice to the Tem shopkeeper, she'll say,
"You will regret this."
Dirty hacker ending. By hacking in the game, or just having the game experience a bug, the neutral route's phone call will be different. It will have Sans calling that this is an error message and to tell the creator about that, before telling the player, "You're just a dirty hacker, aren't you? Yeah, get out of here." Your choices do matter. This is a theory that contradicts the idea in DeltaRune that your choices don't matter. This does have a lot to back up behind it after what happened in the Snowgrave route, where you freeze enemies, and by doing so, while we can have similar scenes to the normal route, we'll get smaller new ones, or scenes that play out differently. This also begs the question of what will the ending be like for DeltaRune? Will we have a similar situation with the neutral route, where the outcome will be the same, but the consequences can lead to different versions of it? It's something we'll just have to see. Merg. Merg is a gaming YouTuber most well known from playing Undertale, DeltaRune, and its many fan games, especially those surrounding the AUs. In recent years, he's branched out and plays other things than Undertale and DeltaRune the fan games, like Friday Night Funkin' and Five Nights at Freddy's. He's so well known that fan games reference him at every chance they get. Every Undertale fan game be like. This is probably the he's not beating Goku of the Undertale community. Because Undertale and DeltaRune are really popular video games, there are bound to be fan games based off them, including ones that revolve around the many AUs. This is a meme that talks about how many Undertale fan games are really hard, have crazy mechanics, and usually have some cheesy fan reasons for it. And don't forget, a lot of these are based off of the Sans boss fight. This will also have the added joke of Merg being able to somehow dodge all of it due to the time and effort he takes into beating these games in his videos, especially for no damage videos.
Now I have attack 99 defense 99 because I'm Sans Phase 2!
Photoshop Flowey name confusion. Among the community, Flowey's form in his boss fight has two names. Photoshop Flowey, which is the official name in this form, and Omega Flowey, which was given to him by the fans. Even more confusion is that in the files, the form is called Flowey X. Area before Ralsei's castle. This is the first area you enter in the Dark World, yet also one of the more interesting and mysterious because it doesn't have a name, is completely desolate of life, and seems to have a few references to Chara. Don't forget. Don't forget is a phrase that appears between Undertale and DeltaRune. You can find it written on Sans' note in Undertale, and it's the song that plays at the end of DeltaRune Chapter 1. which ends with the phrase,
"Don't forget, I'm with you in the dark."
Susie casts Pacify on the king. If you don't do a pacifist take on DeltaRune and befriend everyone, then instead of the Darkners coming to save you from King, Susie will instead distract him for Ralsei to use Pacify on him. Bandage. The Bandage is an item in UnderTale that you can equip as an armor piece. Every time you take damage, you'll be given 1 HP when it's your turn. There's a special note when getting the neutral ending with the Bandage still on you and never removed, where Sans asks,
Well, just going to ask, did you ever take off that gross bandage?
It also has a counterpart in DeltaRune where it serves the same purpose, but can only be accessed by hacking. The Anomaly. During Sans' boss fight, he mentions how there's an anomaly appearing all over the timeline and is repeatedly stopping and starting. This is likely referring to the save points across the underground that the player can find and how determination affects them. Ralsei's manual pages. After finishing the tutorial room in Chapter 1, Ralsei will give you a manual. If you try to throw it away, he'll tell you to stop, and if you try again, he says he's sorry and promises to make a better one. You can't read the manual in-game, but you can in the assets. The pages detail how to play the game, and it's all drawn like a young kid. During the 6th anniversary livestream, Toby Fox mentions Temmie Chain recreated a physical version of the manual. Shayy. Shayy is a popular UnderTale and DeltaRune streamer and YouTuber. They do speedruns and also play mods and UnderTale and DeltaRune fan games. They've also done tier list rankings and use Frogget as their logo. Intro Loox. Both in the UnderTale demo and when Photoshop Flowey takes over the world, the goat monster that appears in the beginning of the prologue is replaced with a monster that looks like Loox. It's likely this happens in the latter as a nod to those that played the demo. Or it could also be Toby forgetting how it's supposed to be. The 3 people smiling is the Fangame. It's commonly believed, especially after DeltaRune's release, that the 3 people in the Don't Forget note in Sans' lab could be the Fangame, or Kris, Ralsei, and Susie. Fingers in his ass. Fingers in his ass refers to a meme with Nagito Komaeda, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, a character from Danganronpa, and Sans, who sings about how Kanye West likes fingers up his ass to the tune of Asgore. Toriel accidentally killing you. During Toriel's boss fight, when you're low on HP, the fireballs will intentionally try to avoid hitting you. However, if you are on one of the walls, you can still be damaged. Once you hit 0 HP, there's a split second where you can see Toriel's shocked expression as she realizes that she just killed you, clearly not trying to in the first place. Beta screenshot on Steam page. On Steam and Steam page, you can find many screenshots for the game you selected. UnderTale is no exception, but if you look closely at the 3rd image, which is where you appear in the game for the first time, you may realize that this isn't an image from the game itself, where it goes to the right, but from the demo, where the entrance is above the start. This is either a mistake made by someone, or a nice nod to the backers and people who played the demo. Underlab. Underlab is a YouTube channel that dedicates itself to UnderTale, talking about the game and theories. It's been branching out to other topics though. If you've been an UnderTale fan for a while at this point, you may have seen a few videos from this channel. Nick Nitro. Nick Nitro is an EDM rock music artist who's made music, remixes, and covers based on video games. Most noticeably, he's made covers and remixes on Touhou and UnderTale and DeltaRune. He's currently also working on his own video game. Dorked. Dorked is a YouTuber who makes video essays on various topics in video games and franchises she enjoys. She's most well known for her UnderTale and DeltaRune analyses and video essays. She also created Inverted Fate, as well as creating The Crow Cries at Midnight and Antipode. She has talked more outside of UnderTale and DeltaRune, including Sonic and Kingdom Hearts. Birdley's Gamerpad. After the release of Chapter 2, YouTuber Squeakrilla released a video that contains audio of Snapcube's Sonic 06 Fandom, which depicts Ralsei and Birdley with Silver and Mephilis's voices and dialogue from the dub.
I'd like to be in the friend zone. I'd like friends.
It's not as pleasant as you'd think. They don't treat you like a friend. They treat you like an item.
Waiting for Toriel. After Toriel gives you a phone in the ruins, she leaves to deal with errands at her home. After she leaves, you're supposed to continue through the ruins and make it to her house before she finds you again and takes you to your room. However, if you stand still for 5 minutes, you get a call from Toriel, telling you to keep waiting and that errands are taking longer than expected. 5 minutes later after that, she finds the flower she was looking for, only for the annoying dog to snatch it. 5 more minutes later, and the annoying dog snatches her phone. Another 5 minutes later, you get a call where you hear the annoying dog sleeping with the phone and Toriel trying to get it. And yet another 5 minutes later, the dog sneezes, with Toriel realizing that they've kept us waiting for a long time. 5 minutes later, who would have thought that, the dog continues to sleep with Toriel getting tired. Finally, after another 5 minutes, the dog just sleeps, and if you try to call during this time, it will be deflected by the dog. After he leaves the room, Toriel tells you what happened to her phone before giving the usual dialogue in this scene. Power of Nero Icarus Remix. A few months after UnderTale's release, Blast Proceed released a remix for Power of Neo that extended it for a hypothetical Mettaton Neo boss fight that went longer. This was commonly used for the hypothetical extended boss fight, at least until Toby released the unfinished extended version of Power of Neo. Power of Neo Unfinished Version. As we are all familiar with, the official version of Power of Neo released in UnderTale is as short as the boss fight and doesn't go on for too long. For UnderTale's 9th anniversary, Toby Fox shared unused music for DeltaRune Chapter 2. In this, he explains that after UnderTale's release, he made a goal to give the fans a real version of Power of Neo in DeltaRune. However, he couldn't find a version that satisfied him, and he made multiple versions of the extended idea, which later transitioned to having a more Spamton theme when he had the idea of Spamton Neo. Man on the Internet. Man on the Internet is a YouTube channel that lyricalizes many video game songs, creates songs, and make musicals around video games. Man on the Internet made a musical series of UnderTale where they take the original UnderTale soundtrack and lyricalize it. They have done the same to DeltaRune Chapters 1 and 2, and will likely do the same for the future chapters. If you like lyricalized version of songs, or also just like musicals, I recommend giving it a listen. Human, I Remember Your Genocides. These are probably the r/Batman Arkham memes of the UnderTale and DeltaRune community. The original image was a photoshopped image of the first encounter with Sans, where instead of the usual banter, Sans confronts the human, stating that he remembers all of their genocide runs. This would quickly spread in 2023, leading to a series of memes where Sans, or one of the other UnderTale or DeltaRune characters, confront the player saying that they remember a series of routes, or just a photoshopped image of the character speaking with the text glowing colors. Sometimes it even involves the fangames and AUs. UnderEvent. UnderEvent is a YouTube channel that talks about the latest UnderTale stuff from the community to showcase and celebrate its growth and creativity. They try to make it more than an UnderTale version of Nintendo Direct, and put stuff in between to make it more unique. The Poop Shitters. This refers to a meme surrounding an image of 5 photorealistic Sanses with the text of the same name above them. It is based on a YouTube channel that posts low-quality versions and samples of music, and within the description of the videos is a fictional story telling of the band's history going back to the late 1990s. Naming yourself after characters. If you choose your name as any of the characters from the game while choosing your name, the game will have some unique texts where the characters in-game respond to it. Some of them, like Asgore, Toriel, Undyne, and Alphys, will not allow you to pick their names, while others, like Papyrus, Gerson, and Catty and Bratty, will allow it. Meme and comic dub channels. On YouTube, there are many channels whose whole shtick is to dub or voice over fan-made UnderTale and DeltaRune comics and memes. Revtrocity. Revtrocity is a content creator and voice actor who does a lot of fan dubs for different characters in different franchises, where he says various things as those characters. He's most well known for his UnderTale and DeltaRune videos, where he also voices comics and memes, and his Saying Things As series. DeltaRune takes place in a different universe. Toby confirmed in interviews that DeltaRune doesn't take place in the same world as UnderTale. Rather, it's a different story with the same characters. This all but confirms the idea that DeltaRune takes place in a different universe/timeline. Papyrus finds a human. In May of 2016, Pymations created an animated Undertale video where Papyrus tries to capture the human and keeps failing.
I caught it, Sans! I caught it!
Wait, really?
Damn! My cooking was too amazing!
Chara buried under a flower bed. It is said that after Chara died, Asgore wanted to put them in a coffin in a new home, but Toriel took their body and gave it a proper burial in the ruins, because Chara said how they wanted to see the flowers before their death. At the end of Genocide, Chara states that it was the player's power that awakened them. It's possible that it was when they fell on the flower bed where they were buried. Another weird coincidence is that when Friska's knocked out and sees the flashback where Asriel meets Chara for the first time, when they awake, they're on a golden flower bed. And the final piece of evidence is that at the end of True Pacifist, we see Asriel looking over the flowers from the beginning, telling Frisk that someone has to look after these flowers. Similar to what Toriel says when you go to talk to her after sparing her. The red soul is not Kris's soul. There's a lot of evidence to point that the red soul is not Kris's soul, but rather the player's. One of the biggest is when they rip out the soul and are able to move fine without it, while the player can only move the heart. Along with this, the Dark World describes Kris as a human body with a human soul. Not there, but And the inhabitants of Hometown say how Kris hasn't been themselves as of late. This could also explain why Kris has options that they wouldn't be aware of, but the player would be if they had played Undertale. Onion Sand's secret. After meeting Onion Sand in the lake in DeltaRune Chapter 1, he'll tell you to meet him in the lake, saying, "I want to tell you something tomorrow. Something I can only tell a friend." With a sinister look to him before disappearing. When talking to him in Chapter 2, he says that he's familiar with an old song at the bottom of the sea. This somewhat correlates with one of the river person's songs, "Tra-la-la, do you ever hear the old song coming from the sea?" We'll see what else he has to say in future chapters. The Angel is the player. The theory suggests that the Angel could be referring to the player in the Genocide run as you come from the surface and go on to kill every monster. r/Underminers. r/Underminers is a subreddit that is dedicated to data mining Undertale and DeltaRune and talking about the discoveries in each game. A lot of hidden secrets and mysteries have been uncovered by the subreddit, including things about Gaster. Andrew Cunningham. Andrew Cunningham is a member of the Undertale and DeltaRune community who makes video essays on both games. He has also made a few live streams where he played Undertale Fangames. Outside of Undertale and DeltaRune, he's also working on a video game called RAM, Random Access Mayhem. Other Undertale and DeltaRune Icebergs. This entry is on the Iceberg out of respect for the other Undertale and DeltaRune Icebergs that gained a lot of attraction and inspired this one. This isn't the first Undertale or DeltaRune Iceberg, and I don't think it'll be the last one. Two of these were covered by Silent Chatterbox 52, as stated in the previous video. So cool. A popular Undertale meme from back in the day is audio where Sans keeps saying and posting, "so cool," with Papyrus getting progressively more and more annoyed until he finally tells Sans to shut it.
So cool.
Shut the fuck up, Sans!
So cool.
Undertale Art Book. On Fangame, you can buy the official Undertale Art Book, which has concept art, early designs, and early sketches, all of which has commentary from Toby Fox, Temmie Chang, and other artists who helped in the creation of the game. Vinyl Soundtrack Hidden Encounter. The back of the Undertale soundtrack has an Undertale-style encounter of you fighting against it. The Eyes Theory. This theory proposes that hiding eyes and faces is used in DeltaRune to hide who the characters were until they go through an arc and reveal these features. In Chapter 1, we don't see Susie's eyes until she feels empathy and saves Kris in the end. Us seeing Lancer's eyes at some point could be him expressing his true self, along with Ralsei uncovering his hat and showing us what he looks like under it at the end of Chapter 1. And Kris showing their eyes at the end of Chapter 1 hints at who the true Kris is. House in Snowdin background. If you look to the background of the entrance to the mysterious door in Snowdin, you can find a lonely house in Snowdin's forest with lit lights from the inside. You're even able to see a lone figure exiting it and entering the house. It's unknown whose house this is or who is leaving and entering the house. Naming yourself Gaster. If you try to name yourself Gaster at the beginning of Undertale, it boots you back to the intro and you have to try a different name. Murder Dance. The Murder Dance is a movement used in the Genocide run in order to get more encounters. It's kind of become a staple and meme in the Undertale community, especially because it's a tactic used in Genocide Run speedruns. There have also been a few Fangames that have called out the trick. Mettaton hired Muffet. This is a theory that said that Mettaton hired Muffet to kill you. Muffet talks in her boss fight of how someone paid her a lot of money to kill you. She also says that the person had a changing form and a sweet smile. It's never saying who it is, but it can be interpreted to be Mettaton because he does have a lot of money and can change form, and he has hired monsters to kill the player. Sans is a Darkner. This isn't a parody to mock Sans' ness. The theory proposes the idea that Sans isn't a skeleton monster, but rather a Darkner. Sans bling is very unique unless you think it was ketchup. The only way that Sans would bleed is if he wasn't a monster, but rather a Darkner. Not to mention, the fire underneath Sans' room is a lot like the doors in the Dark World that help the player travel. Papyrus also described the room as another world. Alarm Clock App. The UnderTale Alarm Clock app was the $32,500 stretch goal for the Kickstarter. Development was paused on the app for various reasons, one of which being that Toby wanted to work on DeltaRune instead. The texts from this app were posted on UnderTale's 5th anniversary, where the characters from UnderTale are asked about their opinions on winter and talk about the Christmas party held by Papyrus. The app gives us some interesting insights such as a bit of what Flowey's life was like in the ruins, and confirming that Rudy Holiday is a monster in the underground who passed away before Frisk fell into the underground, and also has 2 daughters, likely Noelle and Des. Super Smash Bros. Reference. In DeltaRune, Toriel mentions a game that Kris and Asriel used to play a lot called Super Smashing Fighters, and how the Green Lizard was Asriel's favorite. This is obviously a reference to Super Smash Bros. And Yoshi. Being spammed to Neo with a full inventory. After being spammed to Neo in a normal Chapter 2 run, you will be granted a Shadow Crystal. At this point, most players, especially if it's your first time, would have their inventory open. However, if your inventory is full, Spamton will suddenly freak out over the fact that he cannot join Kris at the moment. It can only be picked up in a red chest if the player's inventory is open. Bed Inspector. If you check every bed in Card Castle, you'll be granted the title of Bed Inspector. If you have it during Chapter 2 and check Kris's bed in the Dark World, you'll have a more in-depth description of the bed. Mettaton made Spamton Neil's body. According to this theory, there seems to be a connection between Spamton and Mettaton. Not just because the two have a form with Neo at the end, but also because of the body that Spamton was implemented in. The original body was made by a Lightner who imbued the machine with their hopes and dreams with the help of Swatch. Unfortunately though, nothing came of it. It's possible that the machine was Mettaton's, as it does resemble some of Mettaton Neo's form. Sans Papyrus came from DeltaRune. A popular theory which says Sans Papyrus didn't originate from the world of UnderTale, but instead DeltaRune's. This includes all the connections that Sans seems to have with the Dark World, and would explain the shopkeeper saying to Snowden that the brothers just popped in one day. This is especially more interesting coming from the fact that wherever Sans Papyrus came from, it has green grass, which Hometown does have. What did Kris say? During the Spam to Sweepstakes event, there was a private blog we can read made by Noelle. Within this blog, we see that prior to Chapter 1, Susie really has it out for Kris for some reason. Susie tried to get a reaction out of Kris, but they kept looking at her with indifference, which got her to threaten them with biting their head off. Kris somehow found it amusing, at which Susie threw an apple at them and Kris caught it. This made her even more mad, telling them that there will come a day when their mother won't love them. At which Kris says something to her, and then Susie walks out. Plenty of people have been speculating as to what they could have said to her that made her give up. Flowey Is The Anomaly. This is a theory proposing that the anomaly that Sans had spoken about in his boss fight is not Frisk as he thought, but instead Flowey. Frisk hasn't been in the underground long enough for Sans or someone else to notice an anomaly, and when you talk to Flowey after 4 neutral routes are complete, he'll say not to tell Sans of your abilities and to be careful because
he's caused me more than my fair share of resets.
It's likely that Flowey is the anomaly that Sans is looking for, but because he can't find him, and Frisk is someone who came in recently, he assumed that Frisk was the anomaly. The red soul represents Ball Game. In the same text that gives us colored trait text, we see that Ball Game being colored red. Because of this, and the fact that we don't see determination in red in the same text, it's been a joke to say that the red soul trait represents the Ball Game. The Angel Is Noelle. In the Dark World, Noelle wears an attire similar to that of an angel, potentially linking her to the prophecy from UnderTale, but that doesn't stop there. When you talk to Spamton when buying the Ring of Thorns, he calls Noelle an angel, and considering that she unwillingly participates in the Snowgrave route, this has some potential. So Sorry Overworld Sprite. Temmie Chain made an overworld sprite for So Sorry that wasn't used in the game, except for the Switch version where you can see him standing next to the art club in the True Pacifist ending and even talk to him. Alternate Mad Mew Mew overworld sprites. When you open the doors of the Dog Shrine, Mad Mew Mew will have one of 3 random overworld sprites. She would be wearing either a pink dress, a white dress, or the rarest, a black dress. Spamton Acid Theory. The theory goes that the reason for Spamton being shorter than other Addisons, despite that he is one, could be that he bathed in Queen's Acid River while living in her mansion. The evidence comes from how he talks about being in the burning acid, and one of the few things he says while he talks to him is,
"I used to be nothing but the email guy. Now I'm the it burns. Oh, stop! Help me! It burns guy."
Tea Theory. In DeltaRune Chapter 2, there is a character who will sell you tea for each of the characters, and the amount of health the tea heals depends on how your teammates feel about that character. The weird thing is that when Kris drinks Ralsei tea, they are only healed 60 HP, which is the lowest of the other teas they can drink. According to this theory, this could be due to how the player and Kris are separate, so their opinions on everything are different. This overall begs the question, why does Frisk favor his other friends over Ralsei? A few reasons from this theory could be that either A, Ralsei parallels Asriel and Kris feels abandoned by him. B, Susie is someone that Kris feels somewhat more comfortable with. Or C, Kris is aware of Ralsei's shady behavior. Aborting Genocide. A common misconception is that by sparing any enemy in the game, it will immediately abort the genocide route. However, sparing any monster doesn't immediately abort genocide. It only works for special encounters like Monster Kid, Shyren, and the K9 unit. This is due to how there are around 16 switches that activate that continue the genocide run, and these switches are in unique fights, and when sparing these special enemies, it will cause the route to be aborted. Inside Fangamer plushies. When you cut the Fangamer plushies for UnderTale and DeltaRune, you can find some interesting things. In Toriel, you can find a monster soul, referencing her death. Inside Papyrus, you'll find the annoying dog with a bone, referencing his boss battle where the dog steals his special attack. In Sans, you'll find red cotton to represent his blood when you kill him in the genocide route. Inside Temmie, you'll find Temmie Flakes. Inside Napstablook, you'll find a ghost sandwich. And in Ralsei, you'll find a crayon drawing made by him. And in Spamton, you'll find one single peepus. Character Pin Set 1 Name Changing. On Fangamer, there is a set of pins of Kris, Ralsei, Susie, and Lancer from Chapter 1, which can be sold for $12 US. Every once in a while, the name of the set changes to any of the choices you get for naming the group, that being Fangame, Lancer Fan Club, and Squad. Flowey Discount. During the early days of UnderTale, when you're in the UnderTale section of Fangamer, you can order a bundle of merch called the Determination Combo. If you look underneath the merch info on the right, you'll see a link which asks if you want a discount. If you click on the link, it'll take you to a page where Flowey offers you a discount, and you have the option of whether you want to accept or decline the offer. If you decline, it'll direct you to a Google search page which has cartoons for loser babies or whatever on the search bar. If you accept, you'll get $1 off the Determination Combo. If you didn't use the discount, you would get a postcard which is meant to be a recreation of the pacifist route with art made by Gigi. However, if you choose to go with the discount, the postcard will instead resemble the soulless pacifist ending photo. Skeleton Snow Globe Origins. On both Reddit and X, Fishap talked about how he finally had gotten the skeleton globe from the Spamton sweepstakes, though when he got it, instead came as many musical peepees and a photograph with a letter and artwork done by Toby explaining how they were unable to successfully send the snow globe, so they sent him this and some money instead. It's likely that this was to be an elaborate reference to the shady nature of sweepstakes. Bluebubble.rodeo. In Spamton sweepstakes, one of the mini rewards is a roll of toilet paper with text saying to go to Bluebubble.rodeo. Going on to the website will show Kris and Susie in cowboy attire. Upon clicking on the sprites, you'll hear a whipping sound. Unused sprites in Cross Stitch Book. there's an UnderTale cross-stitch book on Fangame. In this, we have some typical sprite designs, along with some designs made exclusively for the book. Like one where it's spaced whenever you're lying down and feeling like trash with Napstablook, along with some fully colored boss designs. Though it's been confirmed that the fully colored boss designs aren't canon and are there in case you get tired of the typical black and white. UnderTale Collector's Edition. On Fangame is the UnderTale Collector's Edition. With it, you can get a version of UnderTale based on any of the playable console or PC options, a CD box which consists of the soundtrack and bonus tracks, some sheet music for UnderTale, a booklet based on the intro, and a golden heart locket which also counts as a music box of memory. Censored Tarot Cards. On Fangame, they sell a set of UnderTale themed tarot cards. Tumblr artist Godbomber made the art for the cards. With that said, there are some cards that have changed for some reason. Dog Bomber posted all the art he had for the card deck. The changes included Frisk being renamed to the Human, the amalgamates being heavily darkened for Alphys, Chara's black round eyes were replaced with red eyes, and Gaster being removed entirely. Hidden Morse code in Your Best Nightmare shirt. On Fangame, there is a Your Best Nightmare shirt. On the inside of it, there is Morse code, which when translated says, "You called for help, but nobody came," which is obviously a reference to that scene in the fight. Legends of Localization. On Fangame, there is a series called Legends of Localization, a series of books for Legends of Zelda, Mother 2, and UnderTale that use these games to help introduce the reader to the Japanese language. These include the passports and the big hardcover books. UnderTale has its own passport and is the topic of Book 3. Book 3 has been somewhat infamous for having some supposed lore that reveals secret things in the lore of UnderTale. However, just know that when you're going into this book, it's not intended to explore lore, and is more so intended to explain the localization for UnderTale and why certain decisions were made. Noelle created Spamton. In one of Noelle's blog posts, she talks about a game called Cat Peters 2. The basic premise is to take care of a cat, raise it, and possibly breed it. She describes it as a very deep animation and breeding system that allows players to mod the game and add new pets. These pets included birds, hamsters, cars, cartoon characters, and a lot more. Because the breeding system isn't perfect, sometimes you would get freaks of nature, or worse, a message that states the pet is incompatible, resulting in the game crashing. Noelle was so scared of this possibility that she would make sure the pets never fell in love, and if an egg appeared, she would immediately throw it in the trash. However, in one story she leaked in this page, there was an egg she got called Special that never hatched, and no matter what she did, it couldn't be thrown away. After treating it like a normal pet, the egg disappeared the next day with a message saying that it left home due to happiness, when usually it would say it left due to sadness. The egg also had a name that she couldn't remember. This theory proposes that Noelle managed to, at least partially, create the first peepis, which are usually treated like eggs, and with Spamton often referring to Noelle as Hutch Mama. It's possible that Spamton could have been involved in this, maybe being hatched from it, creating the salesman we all know and love. Flowey calling you out after going back from killing Toriel. UnderTale has a way to recall things that the player has done. If you kill Toriel and then reload before killing her and then spare her, Flowey will call you out. This is one of the first things that occur in the game that you can do, which reveals that the game is much more self-aware than we realize upon first glance. That comedian glitch. This famous line was only supposed to happen if you're on a genocide run and interact with a save point and haven't killed Snowdrake. Unfortunately, due to a glitch, it happens whenever you interact with a save point in Snowden. This led many to think that this was referring to Sans. Baby girl, daddy's home. This is a meme based off of a flip-a-clip animation of a poorly drawn, muscular Sans with red lips getting ready to do... well... the deed, if you know what I mean. UnderTale and DeltaRune SoundCloud communities. On SoundCloud, there are many fan songs revolving around UnderTale and DeltaRune and their AUs. It's a place many fan song creators upload as it is easier to post on there than any other music platforms, and it's usually used as an alternative to listening to it on YouTube. You'd be dead where you stand. This famous line is said by Sans during the dinner date in Metaton Resort. The reason why it's on the iceberg is due to the vagueness of the statement that many don't think. Possibilities could include Sans killing the human, Sans capturing and taking the human to Asgore, or also the idea that Sans could have been protecting us from unseen threats, and that if he hadn't, we wouldn't have gotten to that point. Tumblr Sexy Man Tournament. In 2022, a tournament was held consisting of Tumblr sexy men to determine who the sexiest man on the internet is. Among the contestants were Sans, Spamton, The Onceler, Reagan, Megamind, Keen Dice, and Herobrine. In the final round, it came down to Sans and Reagan from Mob Psycho. The results were incredibly close, but at the end of it, Sans won by a single vote, declared him to be the sexiest man on the internet. This gained a lot of attention, and Toby Fox even posted a fanfic on the matter on Twitter. Alphys Pronounciation. In the notes made on how Alphys' name is pronounced, Toby Fox reveals that it's pronounced Alphys. I might have pronounced her name as Alphys before, but that's because that's how I've used it for a long time, and only recently has it been revealed to me that canonically it is pronounced as Alphys. Burley's Limp Arm. If Burley or Queen are defeated through fighting in her boss fight, Burley will try to pull the plug off his face, which results in him getting electrocuted and having his right arm injured. This results in him unable to move his arm in the light world, which he assumes to be because it's sleepy, and Noelle has to carry his books for him. Sybil's GD. Sybil's GD is a YouTuber who makes content on UnderTale and DeltaRune. She posts videos discussing memes, challenges, popular fan games, and other topics revolving around UnderTale and DeltaRune. She also made the AI mods that will be discussed in Tier 5. Mystic Slime. Mystic Slime is a YouTuber who makes videos and shorts based on UnderTale and DeltaRune. These include analyses, fan games, reactions, and facts. The Human and Sans' Tarot Card Symbolism. In Sans' tarot card, we can see Frisk in the reflection of the window, perfectly on the symbol for the DeltaRune. This could be more evidence for the player being the angel. And with that, we end Tier 2 and the video. Next video, we will tackle Tier 3 of the Iceberg, and I hope to see you then. Make sure to comment anything I either missed about the entries, as well as any entries you'd like to see added to the Iceberg. I'm attending college, so uploads are going to be slow, but I'll try my best to upload. If you want more personal updates, visit my blog linked in the description below. Until then, see ya, and remember to stay determined.